global warming is here, and it's driving impact to both people and the world. That's why the government side stands strong to develop the environment and use the mechanism that you will follow on later on my session. Our side problem is, like I said, global warming, which is the actually popular problems and is the recently problem that you will all be concerned. And before I move on to my substantive, I'd like to define a few key terms. We scope the house into USA because we see that USA has a stable economy and the USA is capable. And we see that USA has a lot of clean technology such as clean coal, and USA need to take action on the environment. And we define the word impose as we are attaching every single product, and it should be everywhere. And we define labeling as having them attached with the label, and we define consumer goods as every single product in the market, including menus in the restaurant. And our team mechanism is, first level, we're gonna use carbon labeling to encourage the customers. How we're gonna label the percentage of the carbon we emitting when they produce the products, in order to encourage the customer to care for the world. And second level, we're gonna use carbon tax. Carbon tax, we're gonna encourage the companies. How we can use carbon tax? Why? Because we see that the companies are emitting a lot of carbon, and carbon tax will actually raise the price of their products. And since they are still using a high carbon rate, the product will be expensive and no one gonna use. So we are making the companies care more. And my third level, we are providing an education as a campaign. We want people to know the impact of carbon emitting to the world and make people know how to choose the right product due to reading the label. And we're going to use the Ministry of Commerce and Ministry of Environment to regulate the process. And my team substantive, I'll be talking about why carbon tax along leveling is the best way of solving the problems. And my second speaker will talk about for more sustainable future, environment and economy have to work along together. Yes, before we move on.
So in the end of the day, are you punishing the companies for?
We are not punishing the companies, but we are making them use a lower carbon in order to save the world. And by that, we use tax instead. No, sir. And so moving on to my argument, I got two levels to present to you. My first is why is it so crucial that we have to take an action? Because we see that the environment is fragile. In the past decade, 45 degrees Celsius has been increasing in LA, and we see that going to cause a lot of problem, and thousands of species of marine life will be killed when the temperatures of the water increase by only 1. And another, we see that it is impact on the mankind themselves, because by our mechanism, you actually reduce and you solve the problem at the end of the day. And that perfectly leads to my second level, how carbon trading and carbon taxing will work. Because first, when we are labeling, we are telling the customer that whether this product is good or this product is bad. And we are telling the impact along the environment, because on the label it should say that this when you buy only this one product, how many percent of carbon they are emitting. And we are assuming that when 100 of people buy only one product, and how much percent this is gonna increase, and how it will impact the world. And second, by taxing, we will stop the companies to emit a large amount of carbon when they are not necessary. Because we see that the companies can be able to do better job than emitting a wasteful carbon, which is causing a lot of damage to the environment and the society. And by taxing companies, we need to stop emitting a lot of carbon, because the government are the one who will control the process. And on our third level mechanism, we are, like I've told you before, we are providing education in order to give people education and give people a knowledge on the impact throughout the environment. And how is this going to work? Because we see that when all of three mechanisms that I have provided to you, it will gradually lower the rate of carbon producing, because people are starting to concern about what's happening in the world, and the companies are starting concerned about selling their products, because since they are profit oriented, they're gonna need to sell their product, and by that they will need to reduce their carbon emitting percentage. And education will provide people knowledge on impacting among the society. And without all that have to solve, what I've told you so far, link back to the mechanism that first leveling will encourage people to ensure customers. Second, carbon tax will encourage the companies. And third, education will provide knowledge for customers. And all of this will be controlled by the government, and Ministry of Commerce and Environment are regulating the system. Without reason, I'm probably back to the post.
This go for 7 minutes and 7 seconds. 7:07.
We'd like to thank PM for the government side. We invite the opposition leader to open their case today. Hear, hear.
I think that in today's debate, what we're trying to do is try to solve the environmental problem. In both houses, we concede in the idea that we must do something to help the environment. We must reduce the emission of the carbon and to solve the problem of global warming. So in today's debate, we think that it is whether or not who can provide a better solution in solving this problem. So before moving on to my counter proposal, I would like to make some rebuttal. My first rebuttal is on the idea of carbon tax. They say that they're going to tax the company in every amount of carbon that is released by the company. First of all, we see that should not happen. Why? Because you are not solving the root of the problem, which is the root of the problem is actually you're not solving all the root of the problem. Because we see that all the root of the problem is that one of them is also that people are too complacent. They do not know what is actually going on in the world, and because of that, we see that actually because people do not know of that, in the end of the day, you are actually solving it by using carbon tax. And also, we see that cannot happen. Why? Because you do not get a cooperation from the companies. We see that these companies will not cooperate because we also recognize the fact that in order to reduce the amount of emission, advancement of technologies must be there. We say in order for them to reduce the amount of emission, they must pay more, and by doing so, they are actually, and by taxing every amount of carbon released by this company, you are actually not asking for their cooperation, because in the end of the day, you will not get their cooperation. So moving on to my second rebuttal is on the idea of labor. We see that they're saying that this labor incentivize people to buy an environmental product. We see that is not true. Why? Because in the status quo, we already see that people don't really care whether or not the product is environmental friendly. We can see that what people care is about the quality and the price of the product. In the end of the day, we see that what people really care is whether or not the product it's very obvious that people will choose to buy the product with the same quality but at a cheaper price. In the end of the day, we see that because we see that with carbon tax, in the end of the day, this product will be expensive, and in the end of the day, these people will actually choose to buy the product which of cheaper price and same quality. So moving on to my third rebuttal on the idea of say that the government will be regulating all of this. We see that First of all, we say that should not be the case. Why? Because we recognize the fact that government is not efficient enough. We say that government is not specialized in working in this case. We see that government is not effective and efficient in working in this case. Even if they are, we see that government can actually spend more time on other things. We see that actually there are many other cases that government can concentrate on. Because we see that if you want to actually reduce the amount of emission, I will be proposing a very clear solution to solve that problem, which is now our counter proposal is that by setting up, we are going to use a quota, which means that we are going to set amount of emission that they can pollute, and they are not going to be punished by doing so. But after that, after this company pollute over the amount of that carbon dioxide, they are going to be taxed by the government. By doing so, we see that we are going to still allow them to emit some carbon dioxide, because we recognize that it is impossible for a company to work without emitting any carbon dioxide. And at the end of the day, this will incentivize them to reduce the emission. Why? Because we see that in the end of the day, they do not want to go over the quota, and in the end of the day, they will reduce the amount of emission will reduce. And also, our second mechanism is that we will set a campaign that will educate people on how important the environment is. We said it is important that we see that the problem is that people do not know why must they save the environment. These people do not have enough knowledge on why this environment must be saved. And in the end of the day, we think that it is important to help them gain the knowledge in why it is important to save the environment. So I will be talking about how our mechanism solve the problem, and my second speaker will be talking about how imposing environmentalism and how that mechanism will not solve the problem. So before moving on to my argument.
Yes, sir. We say that we said by giving education, we're going to give education to the people, because we see that when we give education to the people will know the impact on what is going to happen in the world. So the carbon labeling will tell them that.
We do not see on why they must bring up that point, because we already said that we are also considering in the idea of education. We see that it is important for this education to be given to them in the first place. So in the end of the day, I do not actually see the point of asking that QI at all. So moving on to my argument, my first argument is that in order to make a change in the society, everyone must cooperate, and it is important that everyone in the end of the day is incentivized. My first argument is that how quotas solve the root of the problem. We see that companies, they only care about their profit. In the end of the day, they only care about their business and how much money they earn. They do not care about the environment in the end of the day. They do not take in the idea of environment and do not consider about whether they are saving the environment in the end of the day. And also, because of it, we see that by setting a quota in the end of the day, this company will know that first of all, if they pollute more than this amount of emission, if they produce more than this amount of carbon dioxide, in the end of the day, they will be punished by doing so. And then we see that it is important that we are also giving them some extra credit in order for them to run their business, because we see that in the end of the day, we must get their cooperation. Unlike their case, we see that under their case, they're not going to get any cooperation from this company at all. Why? Because they can detect every single amount of carbon dioxide emitted by the company. And in the end of the day, we do not think that in the end of the day, these companies will be able to allow them to do so. And also, but however, it is different under our case. Why? Because we think that it is important. Because under our case, the company can still run their business, but however, the only difference is that the company will be more aware of the amount of emission reduced, the amount of emission emitted by them. And also, so moving on to my second sub-level. My second sub-level is that how company can alleviate the problem and receive cooperation from the people. Because we see that first of all, another problem is that people must gain knowledge. People must know what is going on in today's world, and people must know the importance of saving the environment. And in the end of the day, we see that by giving a campaign, we are actually sending our message to the whole society, to the whole community, to the nation, to the country, that it's important to save the environment. We are going to explain to them what is happening now in today's society, what is happening now, and why it is important to save the environment. Why the amount of emission must be reduced, because we see that in today's society, amount of emission reduced by each community is too high, because by setting a quota is important, and also by telling the people about this is important too, because in the end of the day, these people play a very important part in the society. In the case of whether or not, in the end of the day, they want to choose to buy the product which is environmentally friendly, just as the productions that really is not made of plastic. In the end of the day, it's still more appreciated. So you see that under our case, we actually get a cooperation from every party. We see that under our case, we are actually helping the society, but under their case, they are actually punishing the company. And not only that, they are punishing the people, because in the end of the day, we recognize that these companies, after they got taxed every single month of carbon dioxide, in the end of the day, they will pass that down to the people. So in the end of the day, they will actually be punishing the people for something they have not been doing in the first place. So because of all these reasons, we are proud to oppose. Thank you.
For 7 minutes and 33 seconds. 733.
Good, and good job, opposition. We invite the Deputy Prime Minister to continue the government's case. Hear, hear.
Because we see that the only way to plant the ideas of environmentally friendly in the mind of the people in the society is through labeling. And I'll tell you later in my speech why labeling is so important and why it has to work with carbon taxing. I have three rebuttals to provide to you today towards the previous speakers. On the first rebuttal, they say that we're not solving the problem at the root. Why? Because they say that we're not giving them education. This tells that they're actually not listening to our model, when our model clearly stated that we're going to give them education, and along with the education, we're going to use carbon labeling. How carbon labeling is going to work is that we're going to label how much carbon is emitted when they produce one product, and what does that impact to the world, so that the people will know that if they don't want that impact, they're not going to buy that product. And so we see that the company will have the incentive to emit less carbon, so that the people will see that this company is environmentally friendly and actually working to solve the problem and helping the people. Now, on my second rebuttal, they say that the people care more about the price of the product. Yes, because we see that that is the interest of the market. The people care more about the price of the product. That is why we're using carbon taxing. Carbon taxing is there because the company will see that they want to sell products to the consumer. And that if what the consumer wants is a cheaper price. So that's why they don't want to be taxed as much, so that they're going to emit less carbon. And even if that is not the case, we say that carbon taxing is going to work in the long run. How? when carbon taxing is imposed in the society, what we see in today's debate is that these companies are going to find more developed technology that is going to consume less money and emit less carbon. We see that these technologies are going to be innovated, and by that it is going to work in the long run. It is going to satisfy the interest of the company and the market. Now, we see that even if that will not solve the case, we said the situation is crucial. The situation has to be slowed down. So that is why we are willing to do that to solve the problem and to slow down the problem of global warming. On my third rebuttal, attacking the model on carbon quota, I have three levels in here. On the first level, on the feasibility level of their model, because the feasibility, we question their feasibility. How? We question their feasibility because when they give carbon quota to these companies are not going to be able to produce the product as much as they could, as they did. So we said the companies are not going to satisfy. They say that the company using our proposal is not going to be satisfied, that it is even worse in that case because they cannot even make the product as much as they could. So on second level, on the principal level, they say that the people in under our model are not going to be happy because they have to buy a higher price product. Because that also applies to that case because when these companies cannot produce as much product and that they have to sell to the people at that amount, they have to increase the price in order to keep the company survive. And in order to do that, when they increase the price, the people are not going to be happy as well. And even if that is not so, they say that we never teach the consumer about why we have to do this. We said they say that we never teach the consumer why we have to be environmentally friendly. Because their case is even less teaching to the consumer. How are we teaching them? We're teaching them on how we're giving them leveling, and then we're going to tell them what is the impact to the world. In their case, they're just giving simple education to the people that that global warming is going to kill the people, but they're not telling why they're carbon taxing, why they're giving quota to the companies. Now moving on to my argumentation. On the argumentation for a more sustainable future, environment and economy have to work along together. I have 4 levels of analysis in this argumentation. First level, the interlink of environment and economy. Under this level, number 1, economy is reversible. That there is this economic cycle where it is up and down over decades. People survive recession. So we said the problem that the people are going to face a higher price product is not going to be the problem because it is going to be developed and the price is going to be lowered. Now, for example, Thailand recession in 1990s recovered in a good level in 5 years. So we said there is an economic cycle there. Number 2, environment is irreversible. Once the environment is destroyed, it cannot return. For example, Bangkok right now is 1 meter below the sea level. It will sink within 10 years. Now, on my second level of analysis, imposing carbon taxing will lead to further innovation. The company don't want to pay for carbon taxing. The company don't want to pay for a very high level of carbon of taxing. So again, for the large amount, they don't want to pay for the large amount of the extra cost. So that is why they could innovate more. They could innovate more technologies that is going to be environmentally friendly and also going to be cheaper for the company for the benefit of the company itself. And that is also going to benefit to the society. How? It is going to benefit to the society. It's when the technology is there. The people have the technology to use. It is cheaper. People will be more incentivized to use that technology because that the people are greedy. Now, along with that, people are going to be using a cheaper product. They're going to be able to be environmentally friendly as well. And we said that is what carbon taxing is going to work in the long run because it is going to encourage more innovation. On my third level of analysis, carbon leveling will make consumers more environmentally friendly. How? Because we need to tell you the impact of what this product is going to hurt the world. For example, menus on KFC, McDonald's. It is going to say that if you eat this much amount of chicken in KFC or McDonald's, how many centimeters of the sea level is going to rise. So now the people are going to see that, will know that as their habit, and when they know that, they are going to think over again before acting, before hurting the world. So we said it is going to plant the idea of environmentally friendly in their mind. Now, on my photo of analysis, US is going to be a role model for the other countries. How? US is going to be a good model for the whole world because now the people are going to see that USA is taking an action. USA is now coming into USA is now coming into the taking care of the environment, and that is mutually exclusive to their side because the people are going to see that carbon leveling works better and carbon taxing works better, as I've stated to you before. So now when they export those to the other countries, it is going to be cheaper and more environmentally friendly. And if other countries want to compete that, they have to be able to do as well. Without these reasons, I probably beg to propose. Thank you very much.
For 7 minutes and 27 seconds. 727.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. We now invite the Deputy Leader of Opposition to continue the opposition case for today. Hear, hear.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The motion for today is that this House will impose environmental labeling on all consumer goods. Moving on to my rebuttal. I have two rebuttals to state today. My first rebuttal is that the DPM came up and talked about labeling is green, but at the end of the day, it does not matter if the people know that it's environmentally friendly. If the price is cheap, they will buy the product. And also, if the price has better quality, and even though it's expensive, but it has a better quality, it's a better quality product, they will also buy the product. My second rebuttal is that they said that the carbon tax will work in the long run. But if the carbon tax cannot work now, how can it work in the long run? Because now technology is very expensive. As it keeps improving, the price keeps increasing, and if they can't buy it, then how would they be able to use it? And by using our case, it will incentivize people to buy the technology. My third rebuttal is that they said that the companies will not be able to make the product as much as they could. But under their case, it's even worse. They'll try to tax those people for every emission they did. But under our case, we'll still allow them to emit some carbon. But if they exceed the limitation, they will pay tax. Moving on to my argument. My argument for today is that by setting the quota, we will be solving the root of the problem. My first sub-level is why under their case, their mechanism will not work. It does not matter if it's eco-friendly, because the citizens, they want to have a better quality product. And everybody wants to have a better quality product for themselves. And even, as I said before, even if it's expensive, they will still buy the product because it benefits the people. When they follow their mechanism, people will know how much, they will limit the carbon emission, and they would not be able to the companies will not be able to make even more products. Also, as my PM stated in his mechanism, my LO has stated in his mechanism, is that they would educate the people so that they would realize how much carbon emission is emitting. And also, they are they are punishing the wrong people, because the people are not the one who is, the companies are the one who is emitting the carbon, and also they are the one who's making the product. And under their mechanism, the root of the problem will not work. The root of the problem is that one part of the root of the problem is that the companies does not have an incentive to change to use eco-friendly, because but under our case, when we set a quota, we will limit their carbon emission. Therefore, they would make an incentive to change. Yes.
In our case, we're not only talking about what the consumer wants, we're talking about what we need to do, and that we are having the consumers involved in this action as well.
I think you're trying to say is that we are not only talking about the people, we're also talking about the benefits of the country. But in our case, we're also benefiting the society. Moving on to my next sub-level, which is about higher moral sense. They cannot punish the people because the companies are the one who is not being eco-friendly, and therefore we're going to limit the carbon emission so that the companies will still be able to make products, but at the same time the carbon emission will be reduced. So we're actually benefiting both sides. And when we use when we tax these companies and they no longer use, they don't allow carbon emission, if the technology used will be more expensive, and also they need the technology. Without the technology, they won't be able to make the product, and they need the products to make the company profit. The company they like having these profits, so then they will do anything to make a change. Under our case, we won't be punishing the people, but we will educate them about the importance of eco-friendly. And if these companies, under our case, if they exceed the limit, they will have to pay tax. The government, the companies, and the people play a part in this debate because the government is trying to reduce carbon emission, but at the same time, the companies, they don't want their company to go out of business. So then, therefore, we will be setting a quota which will benefit both parties. Also, the people will be realizing about the carbon emission. So, summarizing what I have just said is that under our mechanism, the government and the companies will both benefit, and also the people will also benefit. The companies will benefit because these companies, they don't want their business to go out, they don't want their business to no longer be there, so therefore they will make an incentive to change, and also the carbon emission will be reduced. And the government does not want a lot of carbon emissions to be reduced, so therefore what we are proposing will decrease the carbon emission, and the people would therefore learn that about the carbon emission. So by setting the quota, we will solve the world problem. Thank you.
The speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 3 seconds. 7:03.
Thank you, Yellow. We'd like to invite Government Whip, seeing Government Side. Here.
Ladies and gentlemen, the problem of the environmental problem is very fragile, and we see it, and we believe that if we don't take action now, later on, it's going to be too late to change, and after that, the resources that we want to use for the economy and for the benefits of the society is going to be lost forever. So today I have two key issues to present to you in this debate. On the first key issue, which side is actually solving the problem in this debate, and on the second key issue, which side is actually incentivizing and allowing people to participate in these programs to save the environment also. But before I go on to my issues, I'd like to say a few words. So move on to my first report, where they cannot claim that our products are going to be low quality. Because what we're saying is that by carbon tax, we're talking about that if these companies they use too much, they create too much carbon, they're going to the products are going to be more highly costly. And we're also saying that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to completely change the product. We can say that we can actually find new ways, such as finding recycling techniques to be able to lower the amount of carbon they use, such as not using plastic bags and all that. And also, secondly, we also say that there's a great deal of harm ahead of us, that we see the dire need now, and we see that if we don't take action right now, it's going to be too late. And we see that we cannot go back at all, and we see that this is a chance to take action. So now I'm going to my first key issue, on the first point. Because we say that both sides concede to the fact that what the consumers want are low price products, and also that's what they're doing. They're also doing and now let's compare the two sides in Canada. Because what our side is doing, ladies and gentlemen, is that we're going to do carbon tax on the spot plus labeling and also education. And what their side is doing a quota, which is say that if companies actually surpass these quotas, they're going to pay a tax. And here's the difference. What we're doing is not the quota, and they're also doing the quota as well. So now, let me explain to you the difference between the two sides. Because side opposition never really told us about how they set the quota, about the limit that they will set the quota to. And we see the chance that some of the companies are not going to change their ways, are not going to change the way they use the green technology in their products, because we say that if you don't reach the quota, and if you don't get taxed, and if you don't get taxed, the prices are still going to be the same. And they're not even providing any incentive to solve the problem, which is about the environment. Because they're still allowing these companies to have the same prices. They're not giving any innovation on why these companies should turn to green technology at all. So now, moving to on our side, because we're saying that carbon tax from the first place, because we're sending out the message out that we need all these companies to change right now, because we say that the environmental problem is too fragile. Thank you. And we also say that by carbon taxing first, we're allowing every company, we're ensuring that every company is going to do this. And why? Because we see that by carbon taxing, because we're going to carbon taxing, meaning that the product's price are going to increase if these companies use a lot of carbon. And so we see that these companies, since they are profit incentivized and that the consumers want those cheap products, they're going to turn to low cheap prices, and we see that these companies are going to have to provide the most low cheap prices at all, or actually find more or also find new companies to do it. And see that this is different because for some companies they're not even providing any incentive or any innovation on why they should change to green technology. Well, we already told you that we're going to ensure that every company is going to participate in this, and we're going to ensure that the problem is going to be solved, because we're going to ensure that these companies, since they're public incentivized, they're going to find the best solution to be able to reduce the carbon that they create. So we're saying that at the end of the day, we're actually solving the problem. Reforming about this.
How many companies must be incentivized, and at the end of the day, they are still given a chance to emit carbon dioxide, and at the end of the day, they know that if they surpass that, they will be taxed.
Oh, that's the point, ladies and gentlemen. Because we're saying that you're still allowing these companies to emit. We're still allowing these companies to emit carbon. Because they're saying that they've set a quota, and we see that these companies sometimes don't pass, and we see that that's the difference. Because we're tackling the problem, we're providing innovation for every company as well. So now I'm going to my second key issue. And we started incentivizing the consumer to participate in this. Because if you haven't, because opposition side, we talked about how we say that education doesn't work. And we also say that education is also under moral. So we see that there's a contradiction on their side. And we're also saying that the difference between the two sides, that we're also including carbon labeling in our model as well. And why is that going to help? Because on their side, they're only providing education. And what our side is doing is that we're allowing these consumers to participate and know the impact of each product. Because by carbon labeling, these customers can know how much carbon was used to be able to make this product. And also we're seeing that the consumers are able to make good choices in order to provide education. They're going to choose they're going to be able to choose the products and create the lowest carbon, and we're also saying that there's not provided any way for consumers to participate in this. Because we say that everyone has to take responsibility in this. So, ladies and gentlemen, what have I told you so far? I showed you the differences between the two sides. Where I told you that by our side, we're going to tax every company at every level. Where we see that these companies, since they're profit incentivized, they want the consumers to buy more of their products. So we say that they're going to be able to fight, and they're going to try to make their products the cheapest price. So we're saying that they're going to try to do green technology at the end. While on their side, not provided as what is the quota actually. They're not provided a number of when you down the quota exceeds. So we're saying that they're still they're not solving the problem as efficiently at all. Because we're saying that we're still allowing these companies to still grow and not providing any new innovation for some of these companies. So from all these reasons, please stand beside proposition.
The speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 3 seconds. 703.
Thank you, Government Whip. We ask the officer whip to come up and close the exercise. Here, here.
Cooperation is needed to solve the problem. My first question for today is that who should be taxed? Whether consumers or producers should be taxed. So under the government mechanism is that they're gonna set carbon tax, and from that they will send a message to consumers and tell them how bad the product is. But then when they tax these companies, the companies will again send these tax to let the citizens who are buying these products from them to pay tax. So moving on to the first level of analysis, why consumers shouldn't be taxed for the producers instead? Consumers, so
does not emit any carbon and is like absolutely friendly towards the environment at all. So we're going to set quota as well as being stated by the ILO. And then from that, when they should pay like very high tax, the income goes down to decrease, and then afterwards it leads to bankruptcy afterwards. But then and this will send messages to other companies because other companies will know the consequences which are followed by exceeding the quota which are set by the government, and then they will find a way to reduce the amount of carbon tax. And from that, it is benefiting the environmentally, because when there's less carbon being emitted, the environment is not being harmed. And then moving on. Oh, yes.
Again, why do you think that the burden is not going to go to the consumer when in your case, the producer cannot produce as much as before?
They can produce as much as before, but they never find a solution which will reduce the amount of carbon being emitted. Better by, and in any case, like, supposedly, they would just try to find like recycling or anything, but they will absolutely find a solution which will not harm themselves. And moving on to my second question, whose mechanism is working? Whose mechanism? And it's benefiting the environment. So the government has said that in our mechanism, it will not work, and then if the price go up, it will also be harming in our mechanism. But then, first level analysis, how will our mechanism work? Is that we are solving the root of the problem, which in this case is the companies themselves. We are punishing the person who is really harming the environment, and then they are friendly to the environment, and they are the person who didn't have the incentive to change. And then if they change, the problem are solved already. It is not that citizens should be paying more tax at all. Second level analysis, how their mechanism won't be solving the problem in this case. So first of all, they are solving the problem at the very end. Under our mechanism, as I have stated before, that we're solving at the root of the problem, but then they're solving at the end of the problem, which is the citizens themselves. They're trying to make the citizens not buy the products, but then in our case, we're going to say that the companies will find a solution themselves, which is to reduce the amount of carbon being emitted. And moving on to my third flashpoint is that under whose mechanism will the company be incentivized and they will benefit? First level analysis, companies should be incentivized to change. They are the root of the problem. They should be changing. And they are the person who's emitting carbon. They know what's going on. They know exactly what is going on. They should be changing, because if they don't change and keep on going like this, people will just be harmful. Second level analysis, under their mechanism, they are not going to cause any change at all, because when there's carbon tax, companies won't change, because the person who's really paying the tax is the citizens. So they don't care how much the tax is. And every company would be just having a tax for the citizens. So the amount is just basically the same. And then they want to, so the companies are not paying it, and then from that the companies are not cooperating. So we believe that the cooperation is needed
I've taught the option required, close the opposition casing today. Here.
Let's take a step back and look at what has happened in this debate. First of all, this debate is about environment and everyone has known that. So the question becomes, who is helping the environment the most? First of all, under decades we can see that on the idea of carbon tax, we can see that they are going to tax every amount of carbon emitted by the company. We can see clearly that every amount of carbon emitted by this company will be taxed by that case. And we have to prevent you from that. Number one, these companies cannot run in the first place. So in the end of the day, number two, it will lead to the idea that the companies will not cooperate under their case. We see in the end of the day, they are punishing, not only punishing, but they are actually terminating the idea of company. They are actually going to take away all the companies because in the end of the day, under their case, we have to prevent you that these companies will not want to cooperate at all. Also, under the idea of carbon level, we also have already proven to you that this will not work. This will not make the people become more environmentally friendly. Why? Because we see that the idea that people in the first place, because under the case, with carbon level and the idea of carbon tax, the combination of these two stuff, first of all, we see that under the case, the carbon level, the productive carbon level, we have already proven to you that because of the technology needed is expensive, and that because that every product produced is taxed, and therefore in the end of the day, the product will be very expensive and people will not want to buy. Why? Because my second speaker has already proven to you in the end of the day, because no matter how expensive the product, because no matter how expensive and how good the product is, in the end of the day, what the people is interested in as the product with the same quality but cheaper price. So in the end of the day, because under the case, the product will going to be so expensive, in the end of the day, we see that under the case, the people, they are actually punishing the people from not buying the product at all. Or under the, but also we are going to see that even under the case, people are not going to buy those products that is so expensive because of the carbon tax and because of the carbon level. So moving on to also they have not defended in their case on the idea of government regulation. We have tackled them on the idea of government regulation because we have said that it is not efficient and it is not effective because the government is not specialized in doing so. But however, there is no response coming from that case on why the government should not, on why the government is suitable and capable of doing so. So therefore, under the case, we see that since in the first place they haven't even proved to us how the government is able to run and have not defended on why the government cannot run. So under the case, we can see that it will not work in the first place. So in the end of the day, we can see that under the case, since the government cannot even, they haven't even proved to us how the government can do so. Under the case, we can see that it will not work. So we see that under our case, it is different. Why? Because it is easy and it is efficient. We have already proven to you that first of all, the idea of quota, because we know that in every company, we have proven to you that it is important to get cooperation from all the people. We have already stated to you that because under our quota, we are going to allow them to emit a certain amount of carbon dioxide. Because in the end of the day, we know that in the end of the day, they will not emit more than the amount of will not surpass the amount because they will have the incentive to not pay more tax. And because of this, we see that at the end of the day, even though the amount of carbon dioxide will still be emitted, but that is going to be little. And in the end of the day, we still see that they will get cooperation from every single company in the society. And that is one of the main problems in today's day, because under the day, they are not getting any cooperation from the company at all. And also, we also have very proven to you that because of it is important, and because of it is important because at the end of the day, after they produce this, after the company has produced this amount of the product, in the end of the day, this product will not be, the price of the product will not be so much higher. So therefore, in the end of the day, people we have very proven to you that in the end of the day, people will not get the wrong message of that if you want to be green, you have to pay more money. So in the end of the day, we have proven to you because they haven't justified and they haven't proven to us how the government can actually run that mechanism. So in the end, we see that mechanism does not work in the first place. And under our case, you can see that under our mechanism, it is better, and in the end of the day, it is efficient. And so in the end of the day, we see that because of all the reasons I have stated, we should stand in this debate. Thank you.
The speaker spoke for 4 minutes and 23 seconds. 4, 2, 3.
We'd like to thank the opposition reply. We invite the government reply to close today's debate. Hear, hear.
Side proposition and side opposition concede to the problem of global warming in today's debate. So let's solve this. We run different proposals, which I'll tell you why our mechanism is going to work better in today's world, and it is going to slow down the process of global warming more efficiently. Now, another difference of our cases. Side proposition wants the consumer to involve in this process, but side opposition sees that the consumer doesn't do anything wrong, so that the consumer shouldn't have to pay more. Now, I have two questions to ask you in this debate. On the first question, what's the difference between quota and taxing leveling? What opposition side is proposing today is that they use quota. People will be able, companies will be able to emit at a limited amount of carbon, and that they are also going to give education to the people. But they didn't exactly tell us how they give education to the people and what education are they going to give us. So we assume that they're going to run the same model, that they're going to tell the people that global warming is happening because of carbon emission and we're going to die. So that's all they're going to do. But with our proposal, what are we going to do? We are going to go with, firstly, carbon taxing. Again, we're going to tax the company, and the price is going to go down to the consumer if the company wants to. And now with that, we said there's competition there. How? Because if a company is more environmentally friendly, the people will want to buy products from their company. Why? Because the product is going to be cheaper. As they said, that the interest of the people is they want a product that is cheaper. And now they're going to get extra benefit on how they're going to be able to be environmentally friendly as we want. Now, we said by being environmentally friendly doesn't always have to use high technology that is expensive. We can also reduce the volume of plastic bag, and that is making a difference, and that is decreasing the amount of tax. Now, on the second point, on labeling, we said the consumer is involved in this process. When the people go to buy products in the market, they're going to see that there's label writing on the product that if you buy this is going to emit this amount of carbon, use this amount of carbon and hurt the road, and what is the impact to the road when you buy that product. The people are now going to see that they don't want to hurt the road. They want to be environmentally friendly. So they are now going to feel involved. They're going to think over again if they're going to buy one product. And with that, we said that people all around the road are going to have the plan in their mind that they don't want to hurt the road. They want to be environmentally friendly. Now, on my second question, under whose model it's going to slow down the process of carbon
global warming more efficiently. Let me analyze this debate again. By carbon quota, we said the quota will never come down, and the people will continue on emitting the same amount of carbon, even if they can innovate more. We assume that they can innovate more, but environmentally, they can innovate more environmentally friendly technology, but they're still going to emit the same amount of carbon because we said these companies agreed under their proposal they to use the same amount of, they to produce the same amount of product because they see that they're not going to be taxed with this amount. But our proposal will to decrease the amount of carbon emission with our proposal. How? Because we see that when they are able to innovate, they see that they are going to be taxed if they produce more product. And we said with that, they to now lower the amount of carbon emission from that company. Now, from the question from side opposition, they said that the government now doesn't know how to do labeling and taxing. To answer that question, we said the government, as we stated, the Ministry of Environment and Commerce are going to be able to run the mechanism because they are the people who know in this process. And even if we can, we question them, why can they do? Because they're using the government as well. So with all these reasons, we proud to propose